Jesse's cleanup operation continues with cold precision. He purchases a shovel, returns to his apartment, and gathers clothing to drop at a dry cleaner in an apparent attempt to destroy further evidence. Along the way, he disposes of a large trash bag in a public bin. He then takes the rental car for a professional deep clean, paying particular attention to the rear compartment, the very area where the suitcase containing Grace had been stored. For him, the job appears complete. For Grace's family, the nightmare is only beginning. For 2 agonizing days, there is silence. No social media activity, no returned calls. Both of Grace's phones remain inactive. On December 5th, her family formally reports her missing to police in Auckland. Her father, Steve Moss, flies in and makes an emotional public appeal, asking anyone with information to come forward. The plea is broadcast widely. If Jesse saw it, he showed no reaction. Behind the scenes, investigators are reconstructing Grace's final movements. CCTV footage reveals she had been on a date with a man whose identity they quickly uncover. Hours of surveillance confirm he was the last person seen with her, and he is tracked back to his residence at the City Life Hotel. At approximately 3 p.m. on December 5th, officers arrive at the hotel. Jesse spots them in the lobby and attempts to walk out casually, hoping not to draw attention. The officers intervene before he can leave. Inside the interrogation room, he chooses denial over admission. Initially, he calmly recounts meeting Grace on Tinder and describes their evening together. However, inconsistencies begin to surface almost immediately. He claims Grace pushed for certain plans, contradicting digital messages already reviewed by investigators. He introduces explanations about meeting in public for safety reasons, attempting to frame himself as cautious rather than calculated. What Jesse does not realize is that detectives have already reviewed surveillance footage, purchase records, rental agreements, and timestamps that map his movements minute by minute. With every answer, he digs himself deeper into a story that evidence will soon dismantle completely.
During the interrogation, detectives begin dissecting Jesse's version of events in precise detail. He explains the route he claims to have taken after leaving with Grace, stating that he walked down Victoria Street and then turned toward the viaduct. Detectives immediately challenge the logic of his path, pointing out that it is an unusual direction if that was truly his destination. When asked why he chose that route, Jesse responds that he feels safer that way. The explanation lacks coherence, and his answers begin to sound improvised rather than factual. Sensing inconsistencies, investigators increase the pressure. They remind him that Grace may still be alive, but she may also be dead, and that if something happened, he could be responsible. The shift in tone unsettles him. He interrupts to ask whether he is being arrested for something he didn't do. At that moment, he is not under arrest, but police in Auckland are already convinced he is central to Grace Millane's disappearance. As investigators widen their scope, the evidence becomes overwhelming. The suitcase, cleaning supplies, and additional hotel night were all purchased using Grace's credit card. Records even suggest he may have used her card to fund his second date. What he likely believed would buy him time instead created a financial trail directly back to him. When police search his apartment, they uncover traces of Grace's blood despite his attempt to clean the scene. Surveillance footage maps his movements hour by hour. Witness testimony confirms key moments. Cell phone data places both of them together at critical times. By December 7th, during a second formal interview, detectives confront him with the accumulated evidence. The strategy of denial collapses. Faced with digital records, forensic findings, and surveillance proof, Jesse confesses. However, the case takes another controversial turn when his legal defense later introduces an argument referencing the film 50 Shades of Grey, attempting to frame the killing as a consensual encounter gone wrong, a claim that would spark widespread public outrage and intense courtroom scrutiny. What began as a missing person investigation had now become one of the most closely watched murder trials in New Zealand's history. In his recorded confession, Jesse attempts to frame the events of that night as consensual intimacy that spiraled out of control. He claims that what began as a placid encounter shifted when Grace allegedly asked to engage in bondage. He tells detectives he later fell asleep in the shower, woke in shock, and believed she had passed away accidentally. He describes panic, confusion, and fear, insisting he did not intend to kill her. But his own words unravel him. He calmly recounts buying a suitcase from the warehouse, purchasing cleaning products, meeting a friend for drinks, and returning to the City Life Hotel as if nothing had happened. He admits loading the suitcase onto a luggage trolley, placing it into a rental car, and driving out at dawn. He details stopping to buy a shovel, traveling toward the Waitakere Ranges, digging a grave, retrieving the suitcase, and burying Grace Mill Lane in the bush. He describes disposing of her belongings in public rubbish bins and cleaning the rental vehicle afterward. Yet even as he outlines these calculated steps, he repeatedly denies murder. This explanation became known publicly as the 50 Shades defense, referencing the film 50 Shades of Grey. The argument suggested that Grace consented to dangerous sexual activity and that her death was a tragic accident. Critics widely viewed the strategy as an attempt to reduce the charge from murder to manslaughter. However, the digital evidence told a different story. Investigators uncovered Google searches made before and after the killing related to hiding a body. They found photographs Jessie had taken of Grace's body before and after placing her in the suitcase. On December 9, 2018, police located her remains in the Waitakere Ranges outside Auckland. A post-mortem examination determined she died from strangulation, with bruising consistent with being forcibly restrained. Under New Zealand law, murder is not divided into degrees. The central question was simple: did he kill her? A jury answered yes. Jessie was found guilty of murder and, on February 21, 2020, was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Following the trial, 2 additional women came forward alleging assaults after meeting him on Tinder. He was convicted on those charges as well, adding further years to his life sentence. What began as a birthday date ended in calculated violence, a global manhunt, and a trial that forced difficult conversations about consent, online dating, and predatory behavior hidden behind charm. Grace left home to explore the world. Instead, the world learned her name for the darkest of reasons.